My film project, Miles from Safety, follows the story of a boy who's trapped in his room whilst the outside world gets overrun by some new monster. He is presented with the choice of leaving the safety of his room, which is about to run out of supplies, and trek across the U.S. to reunite with his family in a military safe zone. Though having many changes from its original concept, there is much the film kept original throughout, from themes, tone, and story beats. I believe that it turned out good, but I shall break it down further here in this creative critical reflection. First, we will look at how my product uses or challenges conventions, and how they represent social groups or issues. My film is played out as a horror movie, with dark settings and some scenes having dramatic shadows. I played to the genre conventions of darkness and build tension through the small shoot-in spaces such as my room. This is built upon further as the boy is leaving his house through the cinematography, where the camera is close up to him, making the frame feel tighter. Eerie music also plays in the background, to slowly build tension. This all also contributed to the mise-en-scene of the film, which played around the dark atmosphere after the power had gone out. My film was always going to be about a boy stuck in his room running out of supplies, but when I originally thought about the story, it was going to be a psychological horror, which I felt ended up changing when I came up with the story that monsters now roam the earth. There were still some psychological factors, however, since the monster is never shown, only hinted at. This, in a way, builds tension and horror since the monster is never shown, which is both an intentional story choice and one based on the fact that making a monster would be too expensive. Many horror films use this tactic of not showing or revealing their monster or antagonists till later in the film, which creates more fear of the unknown or unseen. Examples of this can be seen in the 2018 film Bird Box, which doesn't show its monster, only showing how it affects its victims. The same can also be said for the Blair Witch Project, 1999, which never shows the fabled Blair Witch, creating more fear in the fact that it may not even be real, and just the campers going crazy. Due to film inconvenience, my film was primarily set in my room and house. I used this to my advantage though, since many people can relate to someone who is quarantined in their house, or in this case, in his room because of a monster invasion. Even in quarantine though, everyone must step out every now and then to shop or work, which always brings a chance of danger. Much like the one my character takes as he leaves the house to safety. My character is more of a flat character, however, with having no speaking lines and with the story being focused on the impending doom of him leaving his home. If the film were to continue beyond this introduction, it would follow the boy across the US until he eventually reunited with his parents. How would my product engage with the audience, and how would they be distributed as a real media product? To engage with the audience, I structured the film so that they would experience things just as the main character did, from reading his text messages, hearing the monster roar, his phone dying, packing, and eventually leaving. I've already talked about the camera closely following the boy as he leaves, but the over-the-shoulder shot used allows the audience to see just what the character sees. This also helps create more tension as the audience can only see what the character is seeing, not knowing what lays outside the front door, or even in what could be lurking in the shadows of his own home. A pan of a newspaper also engages with the audience by giving them some background information on the monsters. When distributing the film, Blumhouse Productions would be a viable production company, seeing how many other horror movies they have produced, some being The Invisible Man, 2020, Get Out, 2017, and The Purge, 2013, for example. I also feel that if the movie were to be distributed, it would be best to have a platform and release. That way we can spread out to more theaters if it seems to be successful. When it comes to exhibition, I would also be for the film being put on streaming services such as Netflix or Hulu. There's even Shudder, which is a streaming service tailored to show horror, thriller, and supernatural fiction movies. Doing a project like this has taught me a lot, which leads to the question of how my production skills developed throughout this project. Now, this isn't the first film that I've put together. Not counting school projects, I've made videos for fun, but none of those had the levels of production that I put into making this. What I've learned from this project is the amount of planning that can be put into a film through production. This was my first experience spending months on a singular video, which helped me get a better grasp on production as a whole. I can now storyboard, coordinate filming times, and establish what I wanted my film to look like in the end before even shooting it. Altogether, there was many technologies that went into making the film. What technologies did I use when making the film though? Filming was done on my iPhone 8, which had some drawbacks in the form of the camera having some troubles focusing. But it was the best I had to work with and was more convenient with how I would be editing the film. The software I used to edit was one I was confident with and regularly used, Splice. With this app, I could splice together my clips, filter them, add transitions, and even chop up sound to get rid of any unwanted background noise. Many of the background noises used were even provided by the app, such as the electrical surges and even the monster's roar, which was just the sound of an ox, but slowed down. The music I had used were free to use and all by Kevin MacLeod. 3 different songs play in the background, from Dark Walk to Anxiety, and finally Chase Pulse, in that order. Each song is used to ramp up the tension, as the first song is intense but does have a sense of the unknown. After the power goes out, it changes to Anxiety, which is more eerie since this is the point in the film where the boy finally decides to leave the safety of his room. When the monster roars from around the corner, Chase Pulse starts playing. This song is used to give the sense of urgent danger as the boy must make his quick getaway in his car. That of which leads to the title card, which was also done in Splice, like all the credits shown. Majority of the credits were given to me, but I credited my father, Byron Durden, as one of the cinematographers. I still planned where and how each shot would be done, but he still helped me film the scenes where I could not prop up the camera and act at the same time. The entire film was covered with a filter provided by the app called Graphite to give the film a darker look to it. Not only that, special effects and transitions allowed to create a solid 2004 jump cut inspired edit on the newspaper to highlight the important parts of the newspaper. Editing was quick, with each shot having about 2 to 3 variations, which ended up saving me time on reshooting since I didn't have to reshoot anything. With this project though, I still learned many editing techniques since I had to trim and shorten scenes to match the time limit of my film. Overall, this project was very beneficial to me, with expanding my knowledge and skill of filmmaking, as well as being something fun to make.